3, 2, 1.
Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today with episode 121 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
Is this 122? Because we've just
121 and a half.
Yeah, it's 121 and a half, actually. Holy crap.
That's great. Well, it's me, LoneVaultWanderer.
And it's still me, Karak, with ACG.
And we have a special guest joining us this week, a patient special guest at that.
My name's Brennan Grimblade. I'm a patron, and yeah.
Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for joining us.
Deja vu.
Again, yeah. It's like as if this has already happened. So if you couldn't tell by our sarcastic intro, we recorded about an hour and a half of the first podcast, and my mic decided not to work. And I'm watching Audacity right now. My mic's working fine now, but in OBS it decided to crap out on me. So yeah, we lost the original podcast. We are starting over right now. And so, as always, if you want to go ahead and support the podcast, YouTube likes to end careers now. So, go ahead and check out the Patreon if you want to join and be a part of a great show like our good friend Brennan is. And now, let's begin with our first topic this week, which is a new segment we're going to call This Week in Reviews, when there's a lot of games for us to talk about that are new releases, and Karak and I are both reviewing them, Lone as well. And if any of the guests have played them, then we're just going to talk about that. So this week we had Sonic, Uncharted, we had Agents of Mayhem. Karak, you played Uncharted. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that first.
Yeah, so basically, there's a couple things that I actually really liked about it. One was the amount of content you got. I know some people were a little hedgy about the 8 to 10 hours of gameplay, but you get the multiplayer from Uncharted 4. That's all smashed in there. And then you get one new Survivor wave kind of mode that's added into the Survivor mode that was there already. So that's pretty awesome. It just, I've said it before, it did feel a bit like it was DLC that was sort of exploded up, because the original plan was that it was going to be something with maybe Nate himself. And then I think at some point they were like, well, Nate's going to be looking for his bad hip if we continue to have him go out there. Like, he's getting old. What are we going to do? And so they were looking at Sam and Sully and all these different things, and they finally sort of solidified down to Nadine and Chloe. And then they blew it up to a full game, $40. And it feels like it's been blown up. There's some issues with the narrative. There's a couple bugs, like the warping bug I put in the review.
Amazing.
It was just awesome to watch. The narrative is just a little bit, I would say, a little bit truncated. So, like, if somebody's new to Uncharted or doesn't follow, they're going to watch this and go, what is happening? I mean, it's instant. The starting is like, boom, you're in the game. And it's with characters that aren't Nate, right? So for a lot of people, it's these characters that the last time Chloe was shown, or when she was introduced, was Uncharted 2. So it's a weird combo anyway. But overall, it's more Uncharted. And so some people are going to really like it, and some people are going to be, so-so about it.
That's what I saw in the reviews. A lot of like, it's still, like you said, good Metascore, but Naughty Dog's usually that same 9, 10 company, and I saw a couple of 7s out there, which is a little jarring.
Yeah.
A lot of those complaints were highlighting the fact that it was that samey kind of gameplay from the entire series, and I was thinking to myself, I've been feeling this for a good amount of Uncharted's now, where I just lost entire interest in the series, and I had no interest in picking up 4, and I could care less about, or couldn't care less about, Uncharted Lost Legacy. So, it's one of those games, I guess, where it doesn't bring you into the series for the first time. It's just for fans, and that's it.
Yeah, and in a way, that is the way DLC usually feels. Like, it's odd. It's not Lost in the Damned or Ballad of Gay Tony, where it's standalone DLC about different characters that sort of tell their own stories. This is sort of a side story. The one positive I would have to say is that a lot of people, there's a huge variance in how long it takes people to beat, and one of the reasons is because there's but there's a optional location in the very big area. You drive the Jeep. It's already bigger than Uncharted 4's. But then there's like a mystery place that you don't even have to go to. And so if you do, there's a lot of puzzles. So that can add, for a lot of people, it's added 3 or 4 hours.
Now it's bigger. Is there a lot to do in these big areas, or?
Well, yeah. So basically, there's a ton of, I guess you'd call them like impromptu waypoints with bad guys that have set there for a reason, because they're working for this warlord. And so there's parts where you're just driving around exploring, and then there's other parts where you come on some ruins and you find, a couple bad guys there. And it just all depends on where you're going and what you're doing. But I did like the fact that when you drive around, you can sort, because I died a couple times, where you would come, like, let's say from the north, and the engagement with those enemies felt a particular way. Then you'd come in from the south, and it felt a completely different way because of the landscape and all that stuff, which I feel Uncharted's always done fairly well. But here it sort of keeps up that. And it was awesome. There were some really fun parts.
Is that like kind of the future of the franchise now? Are they going for a more open world approach with it?
That was the question. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Jeep parts are very cool, but they haven't really captured how to do it without adding the Uncharted moments, if that makes sense. So it's like we've got some open-ended stuff, but the only way we really fill it is with the same stuff you would expect if it wasn't open-ended. I think there's probably some battling inside, like how open do you make it? You know, do you make it fully open world? Because I don't think that works. I had said this before. Uncharted 1 was a bit more Indiana Jones. 2, 3, and 4 have been more Michael Bay each time, right? Which is fine, but that is the way it has. It's plastered through a Michael Bay filter. So I don't know if open-ended works. You know, the directed narrative of Uncharted 4 I really enjoyed. So I'm not quite sure I would enjoy it.
You think something maybe like Tomb Raider, where it's got like kind of hubs, open hubs?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because Maddie and I always talk about like open world versus hub and all this stuff. I actually think hub is sort of not the way of the future. I don't want to say that because tons of companies have done it. But I do believe that it's a good middle ground. It's much more realistic middle ground for an Uncharted game too. Except Uncharted, sometimes their narrative will talk about what you just did. And if you didn't just do that, what are they going to say? Like I don't know. It depends on what a fan likes out of Uncharted too. Because a lot of people like the story. They love Nate or they hate Nate, but they like the stories. So it'll be weird to see where they go.
Yeah, that's so. Bren, do you like Uncharted at all?
So I only recently started playing them. I got a PS4 a few months ago, and I've been playing through them slowly, but haven't really got an opinion. I was also going to ask, though, just kind of real quick. I don't know, Karak, if you ever played the Golden Abyss, the Vita Uncharted game, and if I was gonna.
I like that one. I did play that.
I was gonna see if you could compare the two, because that also did not review as well and was not generally liked as well. But
yeah,
no, I never got a chance to play it.
It's one of those games that, and now that you mention that's a fantastic game to bring up, because it definitely was. It was a good game, but you could tell there wasn't that same love and care, polish, attention that was given to the main series, which is expected with these spin-offs, I feel, nowadays. How about Ages of Mayhem? That's a game that both you and I played.
Ages of Mayhem. I say it all the time. I just repeated myself from the prior podcast, but I can't stop doing it whenever anybody mentions that. Yeah, I liked it. What about you?
I liked it, yeah. When I rated it, I said, wait for a sale, about half off is what I put it at, you know, because I think...
I put at deep sale myself, but I still liked parts of it.
Is that about like a 15 to 20 for you, or...?
Yeah, probably. If rent also is a deep sale, because you can't rent on a PC, yeah, it's probably 15 or less.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it's just, I love that art style. The gameplay mechanics in general, I thought were worthy of it. The open world is fun to explore. It's unique. I mean, it's in South Korea. It's really different. It's just that those repetitive gameplay mechanics kill it. It's got so much potential. And then you got hacking every damn minute, going to the same lair, scanning something, you know, searching in a trash can. Hey, you can hack a bike. It's like, can you really? Like, what else can I hack in this world? And they try to justify it through, like, some crazy thing that happens in the narrative. It's like, we're wacky, so you can hack a bike. And that'll open this layer now. And then you can hack something. It's like this endless loop. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I liked it I really liked the first couple hours. The first hour was weird, I'll admit, though. The tutorial is in a horrible-looking area. It's one of the worst first moments I think I've seen in a game.
I was so afraid when I started that game up. I was like, oh, boy.
So was I. And then once you get outside, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. But talk about a missed opportunity there. And then for a couple hours, you know, there was some good gameplay, but the repetitiveness just, and it sucks too, because I loved great deals of it. I love the agent switching. I like how each one can have a special attack that might take out a bot. I mean, there's some intelligent stuff going on there. But at the same time, if you're doing the same thing right away, almost, it can really wear down.
Exactly. It's shocking. You know, you look at Saints Row. This is a game where they made hitting people with big dildos. So much fun.
Right.
And then you got Agents of Mayhem, which shows very minimal, I guess, quest design, we'd say. You know, just very, it's very basic, very bare bones. And it's strange because you know there's creativity there because you look at the agents themselves and how they play. They're all vastly different, personality-wise, gameplay-wise. And it's, like you said, very fun to exploit the weaknesses of enemies, break them down, flipping between all the agents. But it's just not enough in a way because it's like, yes, you have this great pillar here, but everything around it's the same. So it's like you can only unplug so much before you're like, okay, throw me a bone here, do something different.
Yeah. No,
Sometimes
I would
in
agree.
the story, it changes up. It feels pretty good.
And one thing that bothered me a little bit was the bigger characters and the HUD were pretty incredible. When you're Igor, or is it Igor? No, Yeti. When you're Yeti and you're running around, you're talking less than maybe 60% of the screen being viewable because he's massive, the HUD is massive, and it was this odd thing where I was like, man, you guys, I didn't like their HUD at all. I really wish that they had minimized that or allowed you to do a side. I couldn't find an option for choosing the side for the HUD, but there's a couple issues with the control. I know a lot of people don't like third-person shooters anyway, and I get that. But I would agree that in this game, there are actually a couple issues that come up purely because of that viewpoint on some characters.
Lone, I know you've based a lot of your channel around Agents of Mayhem. What do you think about this game?
Oh man, what a segue! That's awesome.
Why didn't you do that in the first podcast?
No, that was.
I gotta think on my toes now. We gotta make sure this isn't the same shit. It's just for our sake.
No intentions of playing it. Like we talked about this before, of course. It just doesn't seem to be something that tickles my fancy.
Just really carrying on the joke there. Nice job.
Fun.
Brennan, I know you like Volition.
Yeah. Again, well, not again for the listeners.
Again, just say it. Just do it.
Well, in any case, Saints Row is one of my favorite game franchises, so I wanted to see this game succeed. I think that what you were saying earlier about the repetition has been cropping up in their games for years, and I'm not surprised that it's there. I think we should have seen that coming. Maybe not to the degree that it apparently is. I haven't played the game, so I can't say. But I said earlier that what I really would have liked to have seen, and the thing that would have sold me on this game, even if it wasn't the best game, the thing that would have sold me would have been multiplayer or co-op of some sort. And even if they were to add that later on in DLC we were talking about earlier, that would be a great thing to make the game more appealing to some older fans of their Saints Row games. And they've shown as well in the past before that they are good. They're very good at DLC. They do some of the best DLC in the industry. So I'm hoping that through DLC or through a free update would be more preferable, that they add some kind of multiplayer component to the game.
Yeah, my fingers are crossed because it's infrastructure screams. We were making a multiplayer game, but decided to go single player. And I wonder if that was
MMO so much.
Yeah,
right.
I wonder if that's because of the tech though, because I mean, there's so much going on screen that it's a pretty good-looking game in my opinion, at least because of its art style. You got to wonder if they decided to back off a potential co-op element. They had to have considered it, that because it would have downgraded the game in so many aspects. And we've talked numerous times about how that tends to affect sales.
Yeah, it's missing. It's missing. To me, just the idea of a game like that with or without co-op matters. And you and I, there's another game, Wildlands, which you and I aren't particularly hot on. And I think one of the issues is most people will say this to me about Wildlands. They'll say, oh, I agree with you if it's just single player, but multiplayer is a blast. Well, guess what? I can't say that about Agents of Mayhem. And I think that just sort of explains it. Yeah, it sort of explains it perfectly why it's got more issues. We can hate it or love that it's got no multiplayer, but it doesn't, and I can't laud them for not putting it in there. It's like it's got an issue because it's not there. Either that or the story. One of the two, but it's like neither of the two.
What section of the story did you like most out of the lieutenants you were taking down? I loved August Gaunt's part. He just had so much crazy personality.
personality. I actually was not a huge fan of that. So this is what's weird about Agents of Mayhem to me a little bit is I love the cutscenes when the heroes come in. And when you get each hero, you know, you start getting them and Rama comes in or Yeti and all those characters. That's a blast. But the actual main game cutscenes and the main bad guy, I did not give a shit about. The one I did find funny is the long-haired dude with the fucking satellite. And he shoots a satellite in the middle of
Hammer,
he's one of the first guys you meet.
Hammer, whatever, Striker Smith or something like that.
Yeah, he looks like a cross between some science professor and a hard rock dude because he's got like the science professor look, but then he's got this long mullet. He looks like a really bad version of Jean-Claude Van Damme from like 1980, and I loved him. I loved that guy. I don't know why.
See, he kind of turned me off from the game because. And what's funny is he's the first lieutenant you fight, and I was just kind of like, oh boy, because in his boss fight, I don't want to, spoil too much for anyone who wants to play it, but he starts shooting balls at you, and he keeps making balls jokes. Yeah, go ahead and do that. Yeah,
Uranus as well, right?
Yeah,
you're
in
the
and it's just this kind of wackiness for the sake of being wacky, unlike August Gaunt, where he's instantly that type of character. He's very crude. He's very much a volition, character.
Bad guy. Yeah.
And so him, for example, you try to break into his car and his car alarm is him singing "Get the fuck away from my car, asshole," is hilarious, So that's why I was like, this is the volition I like personally. And so that guy didn't really hit it home for me.
I thought Hollywood, especially later in the game, I thought Hollywood actually nailed that a couple times too. And originally I wasn't at all excited about that character. I was like, oh God, here he is. He's Johnny Cage as Johnny Cage in an alternate world, right? Like everything about him is Johnny Cage. And then sort of things start to change. And if you start understanding his backstory, it's actually it's actually ridiculously well done. For any of the agents, I actually think Hollywood's story is one of the better ones.
I hardly even cared about their backstories. I tried.
Maybe that's why
to
I
get
only like
into
one.
it. Yeah, I tried to, and I was just not feeling it.
No, I can see it.
The other game that came out this week, I am the only one to have played it, was Sonic Mania. So it was a return to form to the 2D Sonic. It was the team hired a bunch of Sonic fans as well, and they helped make this game, and it is the highest rated Sonic game in 15 years. Now, I'm someone who started Sonic off, I think my first Sonic game, well, it was Sonic Adventure, but I barely remember that. My first Sonic game, though, was actually the one that I'm not going to say fondly, but the one I remember most is Sonic 06. And I know like everyone hates Sonic 06. I enjoyed it as a kid, probably because I did not know any better. But it's probably a terrible game now, but I enjoyed it as a kid. And so I'm going to preserve that memory. But after that, like Sonic Generations is really my favorite Sonic game. And I've just always enjoyed 3D Sonic more. I've thought that it kind of captured the action, the locomotion in a much better way. I thought it was more exciting just to watch unfold. But that doesn't mean that I didn't like Sonic Mania. I really appreciate it for what it is. I can see why people love it. I think there's some really creative game design in there. Some of the levels end in really unique fashions, like a Tetris boss fight. One of them involves taking out a helicopter by bouncing the missiles back. Levels play out differently when you go back with Tails and Knuckles. So there's a lot of interesting replayability here, and you can see a lot of care and effort went into this, and it really encourages me for the future with Sonic Forces. I'm really looking forward to Forces, even though we're going to see some really nasty created characters, I think.
And you said it was $20?
$20, yes. Should have mentioned that first. 20 bucks.
How many hours would you say?
I have not beat it yet, so...
over 8?
Yeah, gotta be.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's time attack, there's a competition mode to play, couch co-op with friends, then there's the Mania mode, which is basically the story. And like I said, then you can go back with other heroes, Tails or Knuckles, and replay them and unlock secret areas that you can't with Sonic. So it's a good game. Even if it was, like I said, I'm not finished with it yet. So even if it ended up being 6 hours, I'd still say it's worth it because it's 6 very quality hours. And especially, Brennan, you said Sonic was your first game ever.
Right.
So I directly referred to you right away.
Yeah, definitely going to pick it up.
Yeah, it's entirely worth it. So that's it for reviews this week. Now we're going to move on to some interesting news revolving around NieR. So NieR Automata came out at a pretty tough time for its developer, Platinum Games. The game was released weeks after the cancellation of Scalebound, a project the company invested years of work on. Scalebound's cancellation came as a shock to many, especially considering the studio's then recent releases were TMNT, Mutants in Manhattan, and Star Fox Zero, two poorly received games. According to the studio co-founder and game designer Hideki Kamiya, were it not for Automata's success, Platinum Games may not have had a future. So, with that news, we obviously have to consider that their last two games were utter tie-in flops. So how much success is success, or is it just general success or success compared to these two games? That's what we got to think about first. So
and how much it digs them out of the whole of those games. I mean, how much they lost on development plus the sales.
Mm-hmm.
What total sales?
Yeah, I mean, NieR sold about 2 million. I think 1.8 was the last actual figure I saw from the NieR account. So, with that being said, I mean, that's pretty good for a game that's relatively niche, or niche, nosh, whatever that
Niche.
Niche.
Niche. All right. So that's not too bad, especially with a game that's kind of got a JRPG element to it.
Right.
Those games usually tend not to do too well. I'm looking up the Mutants Manhattan development timeline. I want to see.
You mean the 3 months it took them?
Yeah, I really want to get an accurate number. Let's see here. Less than 8 months after release, it was removed from all digital storefronts. I forgot about that one.
It's like Afro Samurai
it's not even
2.
on sale anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, Afro Samurai 2 is the same way, where they just pretend it doesn't exist, and they deleted it from all their. We're gone. It's sort of weird to see that moment. It's like Hulk Hogan when he got in trouble, and WWE pretended he didn't exist, right? They got Hulk Hogan, didn't they? Though, I mean, it's just like.
Yes,
I'm sorry, what do you mean Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Last game we know of was on the NES. And you're,
what do you mean Hulk Hogan was in the WWE?
Exactly. Entire Royal Rumbles are missing because he was in them. And they're just like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Those don't exist. We skip numbers. It's odd, even odd. He's just full of shit. But
that's such a great analogy.
It's too bad that they removed that game. Because it was a game that honestly I think mods could have actually helped a little bit too. It's one of the few games where I feel that you could have run some mods for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and actually fixed a couple of their issues. But nice.
I wish. Yeah,
did you find it?
I can't find it, but I'm just
Very
going off
short.
of word of mouth at this point.
Short.
Yeah, that Platinum Games worked a very short time, at least under a year, on Mutants in Manhattan. I wish I could find the exact time. But so we see NieR succeeding. Do we think there's going to be a third entry now?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. NieR is now one of my fucking top games of all time, man.
The thing is, though, is it going to be the same, though, Matty? Is it going to be the NieR that we? I mean, exactly. If they had no connection technically in gameplay overall between the two, are we expecting that the new one will be another 1,000 years? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It may be where it's not necessarily exactly what we're expecting.
That was the beauty with Automata, is just that it seemed like everything fell into place. You had the right director, you had the right team, you had the right publisher, even though Square Enix is a little confused right now. It just seemed like everything fell into place. Will that happen again with another NieR game? We're unsure about that. But also, the first NieR was an action game, so it just seemed almost like a logical next step to get some of the best developers for action games to do NieR. It's just what caught me off guard is when you think Platinum Games, you're like, okay, I'm going to get some really good gameplay and a whatever story. And what shocked me is NieR Automata has a fantastic story, and the way it ties back to the first one when you get to the end of the game is I was blown away. I was so shocked because I loved the first NieR growing up. It was one of those few games that got me all weepy towards the end. So yeah, it's just, I hope we see more of it. There was a canceled Vita game that crushes my heart. I hope they resurrect that title. I know Lone's hoping for it too, because he's been telling me how much he's been enjoying his Vita lately.
Dude,
Between games of
in
Agents of
a
Mayhem.
cold sweat. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah,
just wishing that the Vita would come back.
Yeah, just he lays in bed at night wondering if his Vita and Agents of Mayhem content will blow up and give him as well.
Jesus Christ, man. That's just
I'm so gonna make a video roasting you about your fucking Vita.
You gonna make a diss track, you mean?
Let's do a rap battle. That's a great idea.
I feel like that's the only language they speak now is rap battles. You can't talk sense to these people anymore. Can't just talk out your problems. Can't call your friend, say, hey man, How's it going? Let's chat. No, we have to make rap battles now.
Matty's so whack.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see. I said in a couple prior podcasts, that I'm a big Transformers fan. So I want to see him. I would love to see him revisit that, or Thundercats. I would like to see him revisit some of those older cartoon IPs as well. But I think with NieR, they have a success, and they'll probably, if they're in this much trouble, there's a really good chance you'll see a sequel before anything else. It's more of a guaranteed chance of a success.
What IPs of modern cartoons, modern shows would they fit? Imagine a Teen Titans game.
I just want to throw out here real quick, in answer to that question to some extent. Before the Arkham trilogy came, people never thought that a comic book game, well, Spider-Man 2, but people generally didn't think that comic book games could be good. And now you see them starting to pop up. Like, you see this big deal that Marvel's got with Square Enix. I think that it's not so much a matter of what IP it is, so much as who the developer is and if they really, really care. Because you can tell from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. And maybe it's because it was rushed, but they didn't care. The people that made the Arkham games, they care. Rocksteady, they cared about those games.
Mm-hmm. Even Night, I feel like that game gets a lot of flack. I get why, because like the Batmobile, how the story was handled, but
yeah, the Batmobile, the Killmobile, where they tried to tell you in narrative that you weren't killing somebody because you were obviously fucking killing somebody.
Shooting rubber darts in their chest, but no, it's fine.
For the 99.9% of developers do care. It is all about time and resources that you can put in. So, I mean, I get the don't care. I know Grimm's not actually stating don't care. Well, maybe he is, but
right. No, yeah, you're
most do care. It's just that at some point your resources just aren't there, and I think that Platinum does poorly, very poorly, when they're rushed. And Matty said that before. Yeah. They just don't do so well when they're rushed. They need their maybe their polish team is really good, which is something you don't hear a lot of times. You always hear that the polish team's bad. Mm-hmm. But maybe their polish team is just really, really good, and really that's what they understand, because it certainly seems like when they have the time, that's what occurs.
Yeah, I mean, here's hoping to their future. But like I said, man, a Teen Titans game from Platinum, that'd be wild. Just being able to taking that Agents of Mayhem like mechanic of flipping between agents, instead make it like the members of the Teen Titans. That'd be wild. Anyway, let's move on to our next topic. Microsoft with a delay. It's Crackdown 3 this time. Not a cancellation, a delay, and they're going back to spring 2018. Now, so I don't think this comes as a surprise.
We should ask Alone. No, but we should ask Alone because he's a big Xbox fan.
Yeah.
And he was getting an X for sure. So
at one stage, I was considering.
Oh, maybe not for sure.
No. At one stage, I was, because I have a 4K TV now to back it up. But obviously, in the Lost, Fabled, Forgotten podcast, I was discussing how initially, I wanted an X, and I saw the appeal in it. But as I've started to get more into PC gaming and just seeing the lack of exclusives on the Xbox One versus the PS4, and it's also as well exclusives versus the PC, because a lot of the games that are exclusive to Xbox are also available on the PC too. I'm just seeing less and less reasons to buy into this console. And even though the game's not cancelled, it is being delayed to next year. So when the Xbox One X comes out at launch, am I going to buy it? Probably not. And I think it is a bit of a worry for Microsoft when you do look at their biggest competitor, and even Nintendo as well now, but more so Sony. They have so many more AAA big exclusive titles, and it's hard to compete, especially when this console is so expensive. I understand that Microsoft said that they're trying to appeal to a more niche market, but even that market's going to be hard to convince when you don't have the exclusives to back it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just at this point, I think Sony's running away with it. In that Forgotten podcast, an important point I wanted to bring up was that I wonder if Xbox, with this delay, they're like, okay, 2017 is kind of a wrap. I do think they're genuinely throwing the towel to some extent, because they only have Halo Wars 2, Forza Motorsport 7, and Crackdown's now gone. I don't think Crackdown would have made a difference. Cuphead, that too. But I don't think it was enough to really compete against the storm that continues to come in from Sony, now continuing on with Hellblade. It's another one that's exclusive on their console. At least it's on PC as well. But I think they're taking an approach that Sony did with the PlayStation 3 towards the end of that life cycle and just saying, okay, let's just double down on exclusives, make the good games, and people will come in later on, because no one thought that Sony was coming back with the PS3, and the 360 was miles ahead. Developers favored it, better performance, and by the end of the life cycle, it was almost a 50-50 split on which console people own. So I think that's the approach Microsoft's saying. Do they have as much time to work with? We're not really sure, because we're seeing a lot of half-step consoles. So probably by 2019, I'd imagine we'd see a full step. So if I were Microsoft, I'd start investing in new IP for the future. I think that's just the best course of action for them. And buying PUBG.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Buy PUBG.
You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing, is that we were talking about how, that was a really big exclusive get, but it was a fake exclusive, or a timed one, we'll call it, because it turns out it's going to PlayStation as well. And I think it would be huge if Microsoft pulled what they did with Minecraft and just flicked some cash and said, yeah, you're not putting that anywhere but on a goddamn Microsoft system, okay?
Right.
Right. And by the way, before anybody pisses themselves, what Matty's saying is what would work best for Microsoft. Not that he wants companies to be throwing money around.
No, Matty's
I know
actually
people
an Xbox
immediately,
fan, boy.
Yeah.
I know immediately people are like, what the fuck? He's like, no, he's just saying, if you run Microsoft, what would you do? If you run Sony, if you run Nintendo?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's a big difference between that and, like, my opinion on the Game Pass, where I'm like, yo, this is a game changer. I was like, this is an awesome value with awesome games. I love the Game Pass. I mean, that's one other thing. Microsoft, you can see with some of their actions they're setting up for the future. That Game Pass is another one, backwards compatibility.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I want them to bring back the Xbox Live Summer Arcade thing. I know it's kind of like they did the ID at Xbox, but I think that was another big thing for them. The Xbox Live Arcade unearthed so many gems. I think that's where Castle Crashers came from, right?
Yes.
So many cool titles came from there. And it was always fun. State of Decay came from there.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Fucking such a great game.
Yeah, right? And it's wild.
Yeah, State of Decay is another one that was originally going to be released this year. I thought it was still being released this year, but I could be wrong. I know that they showed some stuff at E3. They had originally told me because I was planning on going up there in September, and I don't think that's going to happen anymore, so maybe they delayed it. But State of Decay for me, Ashen, Cuphead. There's some games that are, sort of nebulous on when they're coming out that I'm really interested in. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Microsoft just is going to do what they are going to do. They didn't, as I said before, scale bound this game. They could have canceled it. They didn't, which obviously shows they really think it's actually quite important. So it'll be, hopefully it is all just about Microsoft saying, okay, so polish is needed. That's what they said. We'll see if that's
State of Decay is coming out in 2018, by the way.
That's what they... Yeah, that's what they say, but I don't know.
What I was saying earlier as well is that I think this might be a move on kind of trying to make 2018 the year for Xbox, because they've got a lot of big games coming out next year.
Oh, did you say? I'm sorry. Did Matty say 2018 for State?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, continue, Grim. Sorry.
No, yeah, that's fine. But all I'm really getting at is that they've got a lot of big games coming in 2018. And if they move this game back, it's not really going to affect the Xbox One X that much, because they're expecting it as a mid-generation console. They're expecting it to have a soft launch. They're not expecting big numbers like when the PS4 and Xbox One released. They're expecting probably something more along the lines of what the PS4 Pro has. So they're looking for slow growth, not fast growth.
Good point. Really good point. Yeah, because 2018, I mean, that's the thing. The games industry runs a lot on word of mouth, and you could see how quickly the tide will turn. Where, let's say, I don't think Sony will slow up in 2018, but if Microsoft just comes in, starts hitting home runs, Sea of Thieves, State of Decay, Crackdown, let's say all these games are good, all of a sudden people are going to be like, wait, hold on, take a look at Microsoft here. So that's a big
you were talking about, I don't know if you mentioned it in this recording, but you were talking about how the PS3 caught up in the end of the life cycle.
Yeah, that's what I brought up earlier. Yeah, so I mentioned
it'll also be interesting because I know a lot of people are going to be like, we want to see huge titles, and then other people in the exact same conversation will say, we want to see new IPs. which is always weird when you hear it from the same person. But you have State of Decay, which I'm going to tell you right now, if State of Decay turns out good, I didn't like its E3 video that they showed, but if it turns out to be good, State of Decay is a game that is just fantastic. The original is well, at least
apocalyptic,
or it would sell me. There's a couple, and Ashen. There's a couple really cool things out there that are sort of waiting around. It's just when are they coming, and what exactly are we getting in the meantime? We're getting the Game Pass, the backwards compatibility. Obviously, third party games will look better. One nice thing is, talking to developers, one of the first things they say is Xbox One was almost always negated from their port list because of the issues with the eSRAM and all of the difficulties, because it was a different overall memory subset and system than a PS4 or a PC. And now that that's switched in the Xbox One X, we won't probably see a NieR skipping Xbox and stuff like that.
That would be good. That would be very good for everyone, I'd say.
What's Hellblade is the other one you mentioned. I was surprised Hellblade skipped it, but then I don't think Hellblade performance-wise would have ran on the Xbox.
No way.
They stated that was the reason it hadn't come
performance.
over.
Yeah. And remember, Microsoft cares about developers. The fucking console, the dev console, has an FPS counter on it, which must mean something. Like they are very oddly. And I say this just because of the people I've talked to, they're very oddly dev-centric right now. So it's very cool if they're like, hey, listen, all these games didn't come to the Xbox for these reasons, so we're going to make sure that you don't have that reason. Yeah. And that's cool in and of itself.
Yeah, you got to wonder if it's Sony killing it or Xbox limitations that are making it look that way. It's a perception thing. Now you mention it, I mean, yeah, absolutely Sony's killing it. I should highlight that first. But now you mention it, I didn't know. I thought Hellblade was just going to be an Xbox exclusive. A PlayStation exclusive. I didn't know it wasn't on the system because of console performance things.
And just so you know, many games that are, we've talked about this in prior podcasts, there's a couple games I've mentioned, there's at least 3 or 4 of some recent IPs that the developers, either behind the scenes or pretty much on their websites, were like, listen, we'd like to cover the Xbox One, but there's a couple issues here and there, and we just really at this time can't do it in the way we want it to look. Cliff Basinski said that about a couple of his stuff that he's worked on and some of the people he's talked to, where people just look at it and go, yeah, it's not going to work out there. But if the X does, you have people like Killing Floor, too, that dev, and some of those devs who are like, this thing is insane. So, of course, we want to release it. Also, let's be honest, it's still making it for the Xbox. It's just going to make it look better. So it's not like it's going to cost them much more. Yeah. It's a up port and or a PC down port. So it'll be somewhat. But.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll wrap it up for the Xbox conversation. Next on the list is We Happy Few. That kind of ties into our Xbox conversation, where this was originally going to be exclusive to the Xbox and I believe the PC. It was a part of Microsoft's early access program, $30. Now it's getting a price hike to $60. We're seeing Gearbox is publishing it, and they plan on multiplying the game size by 3 or 4, I think it was. Good news, bad news, whatever news.
Grim brought up a good point. You want to bring it up again?
Give me a second to think about it, because I don't remember what that point
about
was.
About doubling the size and what that doubling procedure.
Right,
like,
yeah. So
size matters.
Yeah. So
excuse me.
It's girth. I'm sorry. It's girth.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Girth, underrated.
Right,
continue.
So I'll do my whole diatribe again here. Whenever I first saw the E3 press conference, I thought that the game looked fantastic, and then I went the next day. I found out, okay, this game's procedurally generated. So I looked into it. The game looked good, and I was interested. But then hearing just recently that the game was going to be 3 or 4 times larger, and this is a procedurally generated game, it makes me think, this isn't 3 to 4 times more quality content. This is 3 to 4 times more randomly generated environments. So this isn't necessarily going to add anything to the gameplay, to the story. For what little story it'll have, it's not going to add quality content. It will add quantity without adding quality. That's my fear. I don't know that that's the case. I haven't played the game. I haven't played the early access, the beta, but I think that there's some skepticism to them arguing that this is now worth $60 because we have 3 to 4 times more content.
See, I tested it in early access. I know Karak did too. I liked the game a lot in terms of universe. I thought the introduction to the story was cool. You know, deciding what papers you're going to stamp and let go through, like what you're going to censor, what you're not going to. I thought that was really interesting to really set the tone of what this universe is all about. And then, like I said, the joy, man. I mean, that is such a cool mechanic where a lot of these survival procedurally generated games are all about collect all these items, build this and that, and survive. This is about a narrative type of survival where when you pop the joy, the world around you completely transforms. Music turns on. Everything's happy. It's how everyone's perceiving the world. But when you're off joy, yeah, right. The way they walk, like
dude, it was awesome.
So funny. And then when you're off your joy, you see the world for what it really is. And then it gets into the perception of people saying, "Oh, you're just off your joy. That's why you're not, you're acting kind of funny." But it's really you're seeing just how miserable the world actually is. And I love that idea. It's very unique.
Yeah, I like it too. I got to get going, but I want to say that, the one thing that I do like about that game also, and I brought this up in the last podcast, was that it does remind me a little bit about the Observer and the way it handles like what you're really seeing versus what you might be seeing. And so I'm excited for it, but again, I am bothered by we're suddenly double. We'll have to see exactly how it sort of rolls out. But it's an interesting premise and everything. I just don't know if it's a $60 word. Like if there's $60 of game in there, even if they extend it, what does that mean? Like if it's story and stuff that they had prior, the want to put in there and couldn't, that's one thing, but we'll see. So anyway, I got to get going. I appreciate it. Sorry I couldn't stay for the rest of the podcast.
Dude, it's fine. Yeah, I don't think we can predict those types of tech errors. And you stayed 40 minutes, not 30. So, hey, it's all good.
See, that's me. I last long. That's what everybody says.
Oh,
all right. Peace out, everybody. See ya.
All right. See you later, man. Yep. So that's what happens, folks, when you have a podcast that glitches out. You lose one host. Yeah, Karak's officially quitting, and we're on our own here. So we're recruiting.
Officially quitting.
But We Happy Few, Lone, were you interested in this game at all? Was it a purchasing reason for your Xbox One X? What do you think about this whole sitch?
No, it's okay. It's definitely not a purchasing reason for my Xbox One X because I can buy it on Steam. So that's the reality. But in terms of whether I'm going to pick up the game, probably. But we were talking about before how I typically don't buy into Steam Early Access or just Early Access in general because I like to play the game when it's in its finished form. So because of that, because I didn't play it in Early Access, I can't really comment on the price increase. And there's a lot of factors that could go into it. I mean, on Steam, it's actually 50. People saying it's 60. It's 60 at retail, 50 on Steam, and then it was 30 originally. But it seems something that I would enjoy. But the whole procedurally generated thing, I don't know. Like, I typically don't buy into that either. I like my pre-established worlds where the developers kind of custom crafted every little aspect, and that's just typically what I enjoy. So we'll see. I'll give it a go without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the beauty of really any game is it feels unique. So procedurally generated games, it's dangerous territory, but I'm looking forward to it. What were you saying?
Those games can be good. Procedurally generated games can be great, actually. Like, we look at Minecraft, that's a fantastic game.
It's a great example. God damn.
But I think we really have to be skeptical. Not in maybe a cautious optimism is necessary.
Yeah.
Because the game looks great, but I'm not saying you shouldn't get it because the price increase. Like, the game could be fantastic. I hate to see how reviews come out, and even if the reviews aren't fantastic, if the game still looks interesting to you, you played the beta, you liked it, the early access, then maybe consider still getting it.
I mean, I think similar things are being said about No Man's Sky, right? I mean,
right.
That was it's getting updated now. People are starting to like it. Obviously, it was I think polarizing is an understatement. I think most people didn't like that game, but if it's your thing and you enjoy it, then by all means buy into it and support it. But yeah, I agree going to remain cautiously, not even optimistic though. Like I don't know what to expect from this. Like I've seen the gameplays, I've seen what people have said about it, or heard what people said about it, but I don't know. I just don't know whether I'm going to really like this game. If I do, great. If I don't, then no loss.
I think most people who've played it are probably cautiously optimistic because that's usually what these early access are for. Let me get a taste for it, give some feedback, let the developer fix what I had issues with.
Yeah.
Issues I had was really just bugs. Some of the quests wouldn't complete. Some of the quest objectives weren't too direct. But that was one thing that for a procedural generated game, it didn't feel all too much like that. The world itself felt pretty unique. Like I said, the quests that popped up, they weren't just like do X amount of this or that. It really felt like it was kind of a set thing. So it was very different where I wonder if the procedural generation, I can't even say that fucking phrase for the life of me today, but I wonder if that comes into just the gameplay elements and how items spawn around the world, or if the world's set in stone. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm just shooting guesses out there. Now that it's $60 though, my expectations have increased a lot. I'm expecting it to be fully polished. I'm expecting it to be damn good, all that type of stuff, because to double your price, it's kind of like with the Fallout 4 Season Pass, where it's like you're going from 30 to, what was it, 50 or 60? You know,
50.
The expectations rise. It's like, all right, if I'm paying more, I'm getting more, right? So let's hope and cross our fingers that We Happy Few turns out well. And on top of that, one little piece of news that comes out underneath that is that we see Gearbox publishing this, and that's yet another game from them. We have Bulletstorm. We had, what else? Duke Nukem. Fortnite was another.
Fortnite, that's the one. Yeah.
So, I mean, they've been expanding as a publisher a lot, and the question I pose is, are we seeing an attempt of separation from 2K? Are we seeing them just trying to make more money?
It's an interesting one. I mean, I know in the last podcast I said that until they publish and like self-publish one of their big games like a Borderlands, or they didn't even self-publish Battleborn, but once that happens, then I will say that no, they're just trying to keep their ear to the ground and see how they can operate as a publisher. But I don't know. I don't know what their play is here with it, because they have a game like Borderlands, and obviously we don't know what the contract is like whether 2K has X amount of years that they can publish Borderlands. But would they ever trust, I don't know, would they ever trust themselves enough to self-publish that game and do a good job marketing it, etc.? Because really, I mean, and it's the brand name, the 2K brand name is more well known than Gearbox. And that's one of the bigger reasons why that they would publish some of their bigger titles under Borderlands. But it's a money factor too. I mean, they're not publishing big titles on their own. It's We Happy Few, Fortnite, Duke Nukem 3D, and Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition. It's not like they're going out and saying our next big original IP is going to be self-published by us. We don't even know if Project 1v1 is going to be self-published by them.
Yeah, that'd be strange if that wasn't, in my opinion.
I reckon it
fits
should.
the mold for what they've been doing. You had a really good line for what they're doing, Brennan.
Yeah, so what I was saying earlier as well is that I feel as though what they're doing here is they're trying to just throw things at the wall until they see something that sticks. These are smaller projects. These aren't AAA games, and I think they're trying to experiment. Once they've sort of found a real success in publishing games, I think they start to consider expanding. But I think for now, it's mostly an experimental stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'd have to agree with that. I definitely think, though, that if they can have the money, if they can have that separation from 2K, I really think they would probably go for it, because I've always heard, no matter who the publisher is, they can be fun to work with, like on the rare occasion. And it's not like it's all gloom and doom, but that there's just more creative freedom when it's within your own studio. You're calling all the shots. You're allocating all the funds. It's all up to you at the end of the day. So I have to wonder if they have to be inching their way towards that. Possibly. Maybe.
Possibly.
We'll see.
Maybe.
We'll see in the future.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't see a Borderlands game without a little 2K stamp on the bottom right, but that's just me.
Just wouldn't work, would it?
Yeah. It doesn't work. Next piece of news is Quake. Quake Champions received a smorgasbord of news. We have early access. There's a $10 discount if you buy into that early access, even though it's still a free-to-play game. I think that puts it at the $30 mark. We're seeing in the Bethesda cycle of things, Prey's getting a trial. Also, a new Quake champion that's joined the fray is the Doom Marine. A lot going on in Quake's little arena there. Anyone here excited for Quake?
No, but I just wanted to clarify real quick that Quake Champions there, that $30 price tag is for the Champions bundle. So that gives you the current and future champions, whereas the free-to-play version, when that comes out, and this, you won't have access to the free-to-play version early like you would with this early access with the Champions Edition. Yeah. The free-to-play version will have, I think, 3 heroes, and you can rent them out with points you earn in-game.
Okay.
Sort of like League of Legends.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, are you guys looking forward to this game whatsoever, or what's going on?
I think I'll play it. It's kind of like similar to Doom multiplayer. We were really into it for a while, and then I just kind of let go. But I'm probably the wrong person to ask because, again, as I've always mentioned, I prefer just single player. So. Okay.
What about you, Brennan?
Yeah, so I'm not usually big on multiplayer either.
There it is.
but I am interested. I do like Quake. Quake is pretty fun, and I've been trying to get into some of these older classic arena shooters. And it's really hard to go back to the older games. So if this game is good, if it's quality, there aren't any other games really like it. I mean, you've got Unreal, but there's not really a lot of competition in that space now, except for like older games. And I think that could be big in the esports arena, though I don't really have any interest there myself. I don't know. I'm cautiously like looking forward to the game, and if it's good, I'll play it.
Yeah, for me, I played this at PAX East. I enjoyed it pretty thoroughly. I see a lot of fun and potential in it because it's frantic, but it's like very skill based. And I really like the idea of connected universes. And I actually didn't know this, but like Doom and Wolfenstein and Quake are all somewhat connected. I was doing some research on it last night and making a video on it. But like Wolfenstein RPG has a final boss called like the Harbinger of Doom. And then I think in like a Doom RPG, you fight the Cyber Demon, and like, because at the end of the Wolfenstein RPG, he says like, you're going to fight one of my descendants, and you know, he's going to be a lot like you or something along those lines. And then that's the Cyber Demon, who has like, you know, the same mechanical stuff from Wolfenstein, but he's still the demon from Doom. So it's really interesting how it's all connected. And then in Quake 3 Arena, I think it was, the Doom guy was in that. So they're all sort of connected, and we see the Cyber Demon in the most recent Doom, actually. So yeah. I'm thinking they're continuing on with that, and I really like that a lot.
I think Quake 3 Arena was multiplayer only, or maybe it wasn't multiplayer only, but that's where they started moving away from having a single-player campaign and focusing on multiplayer. So yeah, that might
had some type of solo play thing, because I was looking up some gameplay to see like how they played differently, and there was some type of solo thing, I believe. But the solo thing, it was like Battlefront, you know, how like it was the campaign, but it was still a normal match.
As bots or whatever.
Yeah, same thing. Exactly same thing. Where it was like you were still playing a game match, but it was the story, or whatever you'd even call it, solo play. But yeah, what about Prey's Trial? You know, I think that's really good that Bethesda's continuing their trend of offering demos, abilities to test a game out before purchasing it.
Right. Do we know how it works?
It's a trial. It's a trial for PC, so it's the same thing that the consoles already had. Mm-hmm. So if you're on consoles now, the thing that this adds for you is that you can now carry over your achievements and trophies whenever you decide to buy the game. So if you if you go into the demo, the trial, you play through this first 3 hours is what they're calling it. It really depends on how you play the game, if it's 3 hours or not. It's the first like level and a half. Mm-hmm. You get that, and then you get your achievements while you're playing, and then they carry over when you buy the game. So that's for consoles. For PC, it's just the same trial that was already on console.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it allows you to basically start the game in a trial if you're like, I'm really enjoying this, buy it off screen, or on screen rather, and just continue from where you left off.
Right. And Karak's not here to back me up, but I think Prey is a fantastic game. So far for me, it's my game of the year. And I'm kidding. Yeah. For me, if you enjoy games with great gameplay, Prey is fantastic. It's got great gameplay systems. It's a systems-driven game. So if you like games like, and Lone, I'm going to trigger you here, like BioShock. It's got a lot of connections to BioShock.
It's a big comparison.
It's more like, and I know a lot of the younger audience isn't going to have played System Shock, but it's very much a spiritual successor to System Shock. And if you like Dishonored as well, these systems-driven games, like where you can use your tools to do things that nobody in the development team ever expected to happen.
Yeah,
it's one of those kind of games.
Love. Like in the beginning of Prey, I really liked how I climbed on top of the security station, and I climbed up to the second level and got a stun gun that I wouldn't have gotten until way later in the game if I followed the general paths. And I it's not that they didn't expect it because they had a little path leading up to it, but then I had to create my own path afterwards, and I don't think they it's not that they didn't expect it, but it's like you said, there are a lot of moments throughout where they wouldn't expect it. Just for me, it's that the story just
No. You can skip the hardware labs. You can completely skip the hardware labs. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah.
No.
You can go straight to Psychotronics.
That's the thing with Prey. The thing with Prey is that this is a game, and I think I was just talking honestly in a Twitter group chat about this, it's the type of game that years down the line it's going to be studied and people are going to say this game was either A, ahead of its time, or B, more people need to do what this game was doing. Or take exactly what Prey did, and if you got rid of the constantly respawning enemies and actually made the choices you had count, oh my god, that I would be right there with you and say that's probably my game of the year easily. I mean, that's all I've wanted, man.
The game needed another 6 months, I think. It may be more than 6 months, but yeah, I don't know. You might be right, Lone. 6 months might not have done anything for it because the flaws were so inherent within the game that more time wouldn't have fixed it. They had to have made better development choices earlier on, I think. Yeah.
I agree with that because the biggest problems that I had with the game is exactly like Matty is the story. The performance of the game was improved, and this is coming from a studio, that kind of bungled Dishonored 2. To this day, I played Dishonored 2 on PC, and some areas, even on low graphic settings, will just not go above 50 frames or 45 frames. It's insane. So the performance of that game was vastly improved, and that I really appreciated. It's more the decisions that they made with the story, and just the way it climaxed was beautiful. The ending was just like, oh, come on. Like I wanted a little bit more. But the gameplay was fun to me. Like I think everything else about that game was all right. Like it wasn't like amazing my game of the year, but it was still enjoyable.
Yeah. The one thing that frustrates me beyond belief, even if it kind of made sense within a narrative, was the respawning enemies. I mean, and this isn't just Prey. This isn't just Prey. I made sure to emphasize that in my review, and when we talked with the spoiler cast about this game on the podcast a couple of weeks back, like I emphasized, like it's not just this game, but I cannot stand respawning enemies. I get the feeling, or what people are saying when they're like, oh, but going back multiple levels and having no one there kind of sucks. But it's like when you continuously release these super powerful enemies. I mean, because Prey's not an easy game as far as I'm concerned. It was a manageable difficulty, but like I'd blow through all my resources to get back to where I was going, only to recollect the same resources and head back.
I agree, and especially if you're playing on a harder difficulty, you just don't want to go back because you're going to get your ass kicked. But there are interesting side quests you want to do.
We suck at games.
Fucking dick.
The thing about Prey is the difficulty is manageable if you understand the game systems, and I'm not trying to like.
No, I know. You're not egoing us. No, I know.
No, the game has some pretty complex systems that once you figure out what's going on, like it's not too terribly difficult. Though I don't like that to an extent in a systems-driven game where you should be able to do things in any way you want. That is kind of a weakness, but I think really you just have to go about it in the right way. And as well with the difficulties, the difficulty levels, all they do is change the damage output for you and for the enemies. It's like a Fallout difficulty, so it doesn't change the AI. It doesn't give them extra attacks or anything. So the difficulty levels don't really...
It's just the health kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, but that is a big factor in Prey. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
we need to accept that.
When it's resource...
When it's resource driven, and sometimes there are like 5 enemies in a room, it doesn't matter how much you're outputting, you're just getting your ass kicked.
Now, and then also going back to what you said about the enemies respawning, I do agree that that's a problem, but I think the problem is not so much with the enemies respawning as it is with the amount of backtracking that you're doing and the way the backtracking is done.
Agreed.
Because you'll go through an area, and then you'll go into the area through the loading screen, and then immediately run to another door to go through another loading screen, and you don't have anything to do within that area. You're just moving through it.
Yeah.
And the worst is when you're doing that and there is an enemy there that is, obstructing your progress, which is fine. That's kind of the point. But when it's, a game like Prey, they're self-aware. They know their game was a little bit, I wouldn't say difficult. I'd just say, like, it's not really easy just to walk through, blast an enemy, and keep on going, unless it's just a tiny little mimic. It makes that, it's like, geez, I'm just fighting for the next loading screen. I'm not even near my quest at this point.
I mean, the way they could have fixed it, in my opinion, is, like, fine, have backtracking, have enemies respawn, but let there be, like, a genuine, legitimate way to sneak. Because you can't really do it in Prey. Right. When you get to that big, I don't know, it's where the lift is, just the first big area that you really enter into. And you go down that lift. As soon as you exit the lift or get into that big room, there's just fucking enemies everywhere. There's no way to sneak around them. Right?
There's a Weaver and a Technopath, yeah.
Absolutely. And then sometimes you'll get that big fuck-off monster that starts to chase you. There's no way to sneak in that game. And the reason why I like Dishonored is the ability that you can sneak. Even though, Dishonored 2 doesn't really have the backtracking or anything. You do one level and that's about it. Although it kind of
Dishonored had better environmental traversal. So
no, I agree.
And from point A to point B, there were enemies, but
there was some time, like, you'd agree with me, Manny, in Dishonored 2, like, you would go into a level, you would finish it, you would, kill or deal with the final, the boss there however you want to. And then sometimes you'd go back to the same point you entered, right? So even if there were enemies there that you didn't deal with or more have respawned, for argument's sake, I don't know whether there was respawning, but you could still sneak back without being detected.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that Prey should have tried to implement some sort of system like that, where at the very least, if you did want to backtrack and do a quest or whatever, there were ways to get around those respawning enemies. It could still be hard, fine, but at least let there be a way, because in the way Prey is now, you have to encounter those enemies. You have to engage them or just fucking run.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Just my opinion.
It is just your opinion.
But it is a good game. Like I'm not denying. Like it's.
No, I agree.
So far, it's still in my top 5. But
when I compare it to BioShock, I'm not trying to compare it like to say it's on the level of BioShock. The gameplay is similar.
Oh no,
the gameplay loops.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, I totally agree. Especially as I recently replayed BioShock 1 for the 6th time. Like it's one of those games that it has that similarity. You can see it right off the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm on my 7th.
I think why I like it so much.
Oh, I'm behind now. Yeah, I love BioShock, man. Shit's so good. Just ages like fine wine.
Mm-hmm.
I like fine wine.
Lone, how many times have you played BioShock?
Not that many, guys. Like I've played it a couple of because I'm dedicating myself to playing newer games.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's been so many years when all I would do is replay games I've already played, like BioShock or Fallout 3 or whatever it is.
Same.
But now I'm just like, no, you know what? Unless I'm preparing for a new release, like let's say there was a new BioShock, that's the only time I'd replay. Because all that's doing, I might enjoy it or whatever, but it's preventing me from playing newer games. And, it's not just, I've got to, as a YouTuber, remain relevant, which is absolutely true. I need to. Yeah. But it's just I like knowing that I finished a bunch of games. I mean, I don't know. I like it more that I can say I finished 10 games this year as opposed to I played Bioshock 10 times this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. So how many times? Is it like 2, 3?
It'd probably be like 2, and I had a third that I didn't finish.
That's still good. I mean, most people don't even finish the game the first time, right? So
Yeah,
No, absolutely, yeah.
all right. Next segment, talking about some Shenmue 3. Oh man.
Shenmue 3.
Yeah, dude, I grew up on Shenmue. That was my favorite Dreamcast game, because I remember just my mind was blown when they were like, meet us at 8 o'clock, and this is my go-to example, and you actually had to check your watch, like go to the meetup spot, like, all right, it's not 8 o'clock yet, I'm gonna go like to the vending machine, get a drink, and then I'm gonna go do a mini game, try to earn some money, and like you keep just checking the time, like, all right, it's 8, now I'm gonna go meet them, and that's when the quest would actually start. I adored that about Shenmue. Combat system was awesome, really QTE heavy. I don't know how well that would age, but yes, the news is that Deep Silver is now publishing Shenmue 3.
Nice.
Now, I don't think Lone's played Shenmue, but Brandon, have you?
I actually haven't played Shenmue, so you're kind of on your own here. But
I need
I can-
Karak.
I can
need
speak to
Dad.
Deep Silver as a publisher. I like Deep Silver.
Okay, let's talk about that then, because I've kind of just given my 2 cents on Shenmue. This is the first game I ever kickstarted. I grew up with the series. I love it. Whatever. Deep Silver is a publisher. What do you think about that?
Well, so I like Deep Silver. They've done the Saints Row games as well as we mentioned Saints Row earlier. They are a smaller publisher, and I think also like what we were talking about with Gearbox earlier, they're trying to grow. They're a little bit bigger. They've been around for a while as well, so they're definitely
doing
bigger.
more publishing wise than Gearbox. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think they're trying to grow, and I think that this Shenmue 3, they're putting a lot on this, though I can't really say. I don't know what they've released recently though. I'd have to check real quick.
So they're doing Metro, obviously next year, Metro Exodus, which is I think the
That's a
title
big
that
game.
really got me invested in Deep Silver.
Dead Island was for me.
And Dead Island. Well, there you go. So aside from Dead Island and Metro, what are the other bigger titles?
The Saints Row was Deep Silver.
Well,
right?
Saints Row. Well, there you go. Yeah. That's their third.
Homefront was big.
Oh yeah.
That's a good one. Which Homefront? Which Homefront?
Homefront, The Revolution. Yeah, that was the recent one. But they did all the Homefront games.
All right. Well, they published one good Homefront game. The Revolution was just I played that and just, oh my god, just such a good setting, just gone to waste.
Oh, what? They were Hey Matty. Apparently they were behind they did Persona 5. That might be specific to Japan, but
oh really?
No,
yeah.
Usually that'll happen.
Oh, man.
You'll have one publisher. Like for instance,
Yakuza's
I know
another one.
Atlas.
That's a series that's growing. They did Agents of Mayhem.
sorry, Lone, go ahead.
No, it's all right. I think this is the case where if Gearbox Publishing publishes a game in Australia, I think it's still done through 2K. I'm pretty sure that's how the relationships are set up.
Stalker. They did Stalker. Oh well, I guess they
Stalker's
did Metro.
another. You know what? Like they have a nice array
Kingdom
of games.
Come Deliverance. That's gonna be a big one. I like that game. Looks good. What else do we have here?
Wasteland 2? Did they really publish
did
that?
they do Wasteland 2? I didn't even know that.
Killing Floor 2. Did they have just as many good as bad? They did Mighty Number 9 as well.
Yeah, so it's kind of Killer is Dead and Catherine. So they've got some interesting ones too.
They do have a bunch of really good titles.
They absolutely do. So I agree, though. It's kind of a chance because there's something kind of weird about Shenmue 3 this whole time because, you know, they came on stage and announced that Shenmue 3 was a thing they want to do at E3, and then they announced the Kickstarter, and it did get kickstarted. Right. But then they were like, we need more money to make it like open world or whatever they wanted to do with it, and Sony wouldn't pay for it, and they were expecting fans to pay for it, and
now they've got a publisher to pay for it.
Now they've got a publisher, so that's really good for the project itself, I think. What sucks though is that I wouldn't say what sucks because I'm glad I gave my money to Shenmue 3. I'm glad I was able to contribute in part to making the game, like many other people who backed it. But yeah, they're getting money from somewhere else. It's like, you couldn't have done that sooner. You had to take my $30.
Well, no, here's the thing. Obviously, the reason why you have publishers buying in at that stage is if they have a bunch of Kickstarters that have funded this game in part, that gives a publisher more confidence. So
they also have to spend less, right? Think about it.
I think the Kickstarter was less for raising funds as it was for showing fan interest. And the fan interest is definitely there.
And I would argue that's a legitimate way to go about things. I mean, I generally I don't mind Kickstarter. I know some people, will criticize certain projects for doing a Kickstarter and also getting money from a publisher and different sources. But if people are happy to give their money to a project, knowing full well that it's in early stages, that they won't get, like, there's no guarantees or anything like that, then it's their money, unless they're, like, obviously if there are shady practices and Kickstarter backers aren't getting notified of stuff and they're, doing bad things with the money that was invested, that's a different story. But if from start to finish a Kickstarter game does well, right, and everyone was notified, everyone got their Steam keys and all their gifts, and they were happy to give their money, like, who's losing in that situation there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can work out pretty well. I think it's gonna. I can't wait. I'm excited for this game. It's apparently coming out next year. I don't know if that's really actually gonna happen because they're so quiet on it. Like, they used to do Kickstarter updates like left, right, and center, and now they're not doing them as much. So fingers crossed that it actually ends up coming out. But I think if they got a publisher, it's a good sign that things are headed in the right direction.
Shenmue was on the Dreamcast, right?
Yeah, it's weird how that game has transformed because, the first Shenmue was a Dreamcast game, and the second one was an Xbox exclusive, like the original one. And now I think it's only going to be on PS4. So they just make the game. They're just like, all right, we can get it done. Let's get it done. And it's exciting because, and I won't spoil what happens, but Shenmue 2 ends on a big cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And so Shenmue 3, it's like everyone just wants to know what happens next. And, oh, God. Why do we have to wait so long for the good things in life? Oh.
Yeah, but it makes it better once you finally get it.
Yeah. Or if they fuck it up, then it's just going to send me into just a deep despair.
Just remember that you got a new Persona game.
Yeah, true that. Yeah, a lot of new Persona games. Oh, thank you. That was good. That's nice. Anything else on Shenmue 3?
No.
All right. That happens to be our last topic. Unless you guys want to talk about YouTube a little bit more.
Yeah, I was saying if you want to talk about it, Matty, I'm more than happy to.
So I also want to say this entirely goes for Karak as well as many other YouTubers, but we had this entire segment discussing how YouTube's changing. So what happened was Karak lost about 100 and what was the number? 20?
140 it was up to. It was up to 140 something, yeah.
Yeah, 140 something videos are now under the limited or no advertisement section. So what that is,
you have 90?
Yes, I have 90. And what that is for us is basically YouTube has implemented this new monetization advertisement system, and it decides if content is worthy of advertisement. So if you have a lot of cursing in your videos, if you have titles like, for example, mine are like Maddie's Sexy Top 5 Games of the Year of 2016. And because it says sexy, no advertiser obviously wants to advertise on my videos, even though I'm sure mainstream advertisers go to fucking Pornhub, but all right, whatever. So there's that. And that means that basically we're not earning revenue for our videos.
Or a very limited amount.
Yeah, or very, like you said, a very limited amount. It's like either you're opting into Nintendo's monetization program for all your videos, or you're not making money at all. And that sucks. So what we wanted to go ahead and talk about today was how important it is to support creators. Like, we're not just speaking only for ourselves, although we happen to find ourselves in that situation where you want to compete on YouTube. The way you do that is, like Lone said, you want to remain relevant. But if all of a sudden your advertisement and ad revenue is cut off, then you're making less money. You have to make your money somewhere to continue living, and that means that you cannot put as much time into YouTube. So if you're working a part-time job and part-time YouTube, you're not putting out enough content, then you fall out of relevancy, then the channel falls apart. It's, like Lone said, it's a really harsh snowball effect.
It is a vicious snowball because, and I'll give my perspective, right? So as people know, I have a job, so I don't do YouTube full time, which means I can only make, I think, 3 videos a week, and they're very, bare bones discussion videos with not much editing. So even now I can't compete, but once these changes hit me, because they haven't hit me yet, I haven't had a single video affected, although they probably are affected, and I just don't know it yet. I don't have it in my creator studio, but it's especially for me, if I see that my videos aren't making as much money as before, even though YouTube is a hobby and stuff, but just imagine if someone that's my size trying to do this full time and actually making money and income from it, but they can't live off fucking smiles, as we've said many times in the past. So they're going to have to try and find other ways to make money. That might be a part-time job, but then you do a part-time job, you have less time for YouTube, so then you can't compete, so you're making less videos, and then it just rinse and repeat. Like it's just going to solidify the position of larger channels on this platform, which I think is really unfortunate for small to mid-tier channels. And I think even like channels that have 400,000, 500,000 subs aren't, not impacted by this. They certainly are. I think above that above that subscriber level, you're probably earning enough that these hits, while you are being hit, it's not going to be the be all or end all. But for smaller channels and mid-tier channels, it's worrying times.
Yeah, absolutely. What's funny is you say that is that YouTuber I'm friends with, Noah G456, his entire channel got demonetized entirely.
Yeah, Fudge Muppet has 300 videos.
Yeah, like that's ridiculous. So the reason we wanted to make this segment is that if you care about your creators and you consume the content and you want to keep them on the platform, it's important to consider, if possible, obviously if you can't because of whatever financial situation, totally fine, but that if possible you support them where you can, because like Lone said, you can't live off smiles. And there's only so much help you can get before you're like, okay, I need to just go make money somewhere else so I can continue to live under my roof, Yeah. So it sucks big time that, for example, Karak was put in a position where, because YouTube had demonetized 141 reviews, most of them new videos of his, that he made a video and he's like, look, I hate to make channel update videos, but I need help. ACG simply cannot continue if I am not receiving the money. And he just put it straight up like that. For me, I am not in yet, at least, knock on wood, a dire situation where I need to make a video basically saying this is it. It's either, you help me or the channel can't go on. Because I was lucky enough that although they did get a lot of my popular content, they also hit a lot of videos that never get viewed. A full Let's Play series on Fear 3 with Noah, Let's Play videos of Nazi zombie armies, some Wolfenstein videos. Nothing huge, nothing that's being watched now. But still, what I'm afraid of is that they're going to keep hitting my older content, and while, videos now may not perform excessively well, those older content, they balance it out. So, you don't have to hit a home run with every new video that comes out. You just have these old videos balancing you out, where you can have a video that hits 10K views a couple of days in a row. It's whatever, because you have all this old content backing you up. So that's what I'm most afraid of. And right now, like I said, I'm lucky enough not to be in a position of complete panic and worry, but I am definitely concerned, for sure.
Absolutely. It's worrying. I mean, and I was also saying in the last podcast, but right now, I mean, if there was any chance that I could ever do YouTube full time, from my perspective, that's all but gone now. There is absolutely no way trying to make a living. I mean, I'll give some perspective, right? Where I live at the moment with my girlfriend and I, the median house price is $1 million, right? And we have 2 incomes coming in, and I have a pretty stable job, and we need to get a $200,000 deposit. You think I'm going to fucking manage that, doing it, just YouTube full time and trying to pay bills while also trying to save for a deposit? Like, people can't live like this. It just doesn't work that way. So I'm worried that unless obviously channels have their Patreon support backed up, that there are going to be a lot of channels that just fade away.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is you're put in a situation where you literally have to tell your viewers, do or die time. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Which is what Karak did.
That's the thing, is when I made my Patreon, when Karak made his, we were both like, this is I mean, Karak, like, you know, we want it to be for, you like the content, you feel I've saved you some money through my reviews or whatever, and you want to give it to me. You don't want to have to put them in the position where it's like, guys, if you want to keep me around, you got to help, you know, and that's what sucks about it. That's why I'm not, and Karak didn't immediately press it, I'm not saying this, but that's why I'm not immediately jumping to like, okay, boop, boop, like hit the big red button, let everyone know, like, hey, I need some help here, at least right now.
And yeah, we mentioned earlier as well, and if there aren't really any alternatives to YouTube, any viable alternatives, and if there were, it would have to come from one of these larger companies. Like Google has YouTube, and Amazon has Twitch. Microsoft just launched their new Mixer, but one of these companies would have to host a video hosting platform because the enormous amount of servers that they have to host for holding all of the videos no other company can do it. No indie can start up and start hosting videos.
And also as well generate the advertisers necessary to be able to pay people that make content. Right. And as well, Lone, you mentioned earlier as well that even if one of these alternatives does pop up, right, you have to keep in mind that once they get big enough, these advertisers are also going to start putting these same restrictions on videos on other platforms. Yep.
So it's inevitable. It's unavoidable. It's just that, like I was saying, I feel like the best solution would be like, look, I don't have a problem if you're going to change how advertisement works. Just, number one, give a notification of when it's being implemented. Number two, tell us what it's about. Release the guidelines in full, like where everyone can see it. Like when I sign in, have like a bar up top that says like, YouTube advertisement guidelines have changed. If you were a creator, please read here. Because
you have videos, Matty, that you can't actually fight against in terms of the limited advertising. Because they have this system, I think, if in the past 7 days that video hasn't gotten 1,000 views, you can't actually fight against any limited ads being placed on there.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if this is the case as well, but is it the case where even very old videos? No, that would just be the views. Sorry, so disregard that. But the fact is that when you have, let's say, hundreds of videos that are pretty old, like a bunch of Matty's videos that were flagged, that aren't making 1,000 views every week, but collectively they might be making 500 views each, which adds up if it's hundreds of videos to a fair amount of views and therefore a fair amount of ad revenue. But individually, because they're not making enough, you can't actually fight against these limited ads. It's just, I'm getting upset thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks, but like you said, I'm not the one who looks and says, like, someone save us from YouTube. I mean, YouTube's given me a lot in my life, so, like, I'm not just going to jump ship the second a new platform came up. And like I said, I think the same issues would arise on another platform. It would just only take that same amount of delay. Yeah, it's just, it sucks. But like I was saying is that what I would have loved is if they said, okay, content from, like, August or starting in September, content from that point forward must adhere to these guidelines.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
So you knew,
yeah,
right?
Then I know. So when I'm making my content, I am respecting the guidelines. But when you're going to limit content I made a year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago for something that you're putting in now, like, I don't think about that and try to predict the future, and no one makes content that way. It just doesn't happen. I don't think, like, what if YouTube was to tell me that I can't use sexy in a title? Oh,
in 3 years' time.
Yeah. In 3 years' time, exactly. Like, what bullshit are they going to pull that I should consider? Like, no, you don't think of that. You make the video because it's impossible to predict. And so that's what frustrates me the most. Now, I know the ads are going to pop up on the video anyway for those other videos. So it's like, well, you just want us to shut off advertisements. But I think, like I said, just if you built it into the guidelines and said, like, okay, these rules are not in place for these older videos, so therefore advertisers should select whether or not they want to. I don't know, man. It's such a fucking shit show. I hate it, but it was bound to happen. And like I said, I'm fortunate to not be in a state of alarm at the moment, but it can get close to that.
Yeah, especially when you have if you're paying off a mortgage or have kids or like, there's no way I'm doing this. I could do this full time ever. It just would not be possible. And I'm saying that, but I'm fine. Like who I really worry about are the people that are doing this full time, that are having their revenues cut in half or cut by 2/3 or whatever it is, You can't live off that. You can't.
No, you can't. That's why Patreon. It's literally becoming to the point where
it's a necessity.
You literally, when you launch a channel and you start building up a viewer base, it's like you need to just tell people I'm starting a Patreon. Because for me, I was always looking for a reason to justify it. Like I was like, I had to be full time or doing this and this and that. I kind of wish I started it sooner because I have an excellent community who really supports me hard and makes real crucial decisions with me. But on top of that, it's helped me so much. It's much more relaxing making content. Now, let's say this ad stuff puts the pressure on. At least now I have a little bit of a backup plan where I could say like, hey guys, I've had this open it's been since February. So I've had this open for half a year now. And I'd really appreciate it if you help me out. So I think it's something that all content creators should consider because it's so inconsistent with ad revenue. So inconsistent.
And I think as well, it just makes sense economically. Like ad revenue just doesn't like if you think about watching TV or going to see the movies, right? You pay for these entertainment sources, and there's a reason that you pay for them. Ad revenue is not enough on its own. It just doesn't make sense economically. I think we're going to see a shift not towards just things like Patreon, but you're going to you'll start seeing people that were big on YouTube moving into like Netflix or Twitch video. You're going to not Twitch, Amazon Video. You're going to see other things similar to Kickstarter and Patreon popping up. You're going to see a lot of these programs popping up, and eventually I think something that would make a lot of sense, and I don't know why YouTube doesn't already do this, is to tie in something similar to Patreon directly into YouTube, or for a competitor to do something like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that
they did have that, and that's the weird thing. I mean,
and they got rid of it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that it wasn't being widely used, but there were some people, like Alana Pierce, for instance. Yeah, Chara Lanazard or whatever her YouTube name is. Mm-hmm. She was that was her biggest source of income off of YouTube.
Yeah,
was that system.
Yeah, donation tips, and they're gone.
Yep.
Now a lot of people just open up a PayPal link and they say like, donate here.
But you know what it's going to lead to, and for obvious reasons, it's fine. It's going to lead to more sponsorships. It's going to lead to other ways of making revenue, and viewers just can't complain. I know viewers like to complain when people sell out and do sponsorships and stuff, but if this whole debacle is going to teach us anything, it's that YouTubers aren't making enough money generally, unless you're really big, to be able to survive, and they need other sources of income. So don't bitch when someone does a Patreon. Don't bitch when someone does a sponsorship. That's what they need to survive. That's what they need.
It's no coincidence that my inbox is ridiculously full with like sponsorship offers from everywhere. Like lots of games, lots of relevant current games I wouldn't have expected. I mean, app offers, it's insane. And I'm like, for a second I didn't connect the dots, but then I just thought now, I was like, wow, I wonder why.
They're taking advantage.
Yeah, they see a lot of people struggling and they're taking advantage of it. Now, I think, like with every issue on YouTube, within a week or two, we're going to see it be handled properly. It's just that the way they launch shit sucks so badly.
Yeah.
And what upsets me is that a lot of my videos that got flagged were videos of me cursing a lot, and like 2 of them were my Activision videos. And I'm like, dude, I love making Activision videos because that's where I just become my loudmouthed, fuck this shit kind of self.
But you know what the weird thing is, Matty, is that I guarantee you that video would not have been flagged because you were swearing, because they don't manually check this. Like they are literally auditing thousands, if not millions, of videos right now and placing either limited ads or saying that they're okay. They have some sort of AI that's checking titles, tags, and descriptions, and any keywords like sexy, for instance, in your title that's being affected. They're not checking whether you're swearing. They'll take that into consideration if they ever do a manual review, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not what matters. Like, I have a bunch of videos where I'm swearing, and I guarantee you that none of them will be affected. It'll be what I put in the titles, tags, and descriptions. That's going to be what it comes down to. So YouTubers and
with boobs and stuff.
Absolutely. And YouTubers, and again, it would have been helpful if they gave us more notification and communication. Absolutely. But that's what they're going to have to bear that in mind. Every time they put a tag in, they need to make sure that it's not an XE word. And this might affect channels that are covering Wolfenstein and Call of Duty, zombies, and stuff like that, because those are the relevant tags you'd use.
Yeah, like I said, anything with Nazis in mind.
Anything with
nope.
Nazi, anything with like killing or just, I don't know, suspect words, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
And
oh, sorry, I interrupted you.
no, I was gonna say, and Karak had seen that this discrepancy had popped up a few weeks ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this has been a while back that they started doing this.
Yeah,
so
good point. I forgot that. Karak did say that he was seeing videos earn less revenue, but yet it wasn't telling him that the advertisements were limited. So the system was in place. He was just not alerted
you know
to it.
what? Now that Karak mentioned it, and you've mentioned it now, do you remember how I said to you that a recent video of mine on the ZeniMax lawsuit got 100,000 views and made $30? I guarantee you, when I receive notifications, that's going to be one of the ones that have been affected with limited ads. And it's literally talking about a lawsuit. Like, whatever. We'll see. We'll see when I actually get hit. Because mind you, I haven't gotten hit yet. So when that happens,
I'm curious to see how that goes. I genuinely hope you don't get hit. I really don't. But I'm saying if it does happen,
it is a curiosity factor. So I'll let you know.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. I'm just saying I'm definitely curious to see what, because here's the thing is all the content. I mean, that's the thing is when I told people, that on Twitter, I was like, yeah, I just got 3 pages worth of videos hit. They were like, oh, like even you, they were shocked because they were like, dude, the worst you do is curse. Like you don't get political.
Yeah.
You don't clickbait. You just keep it pretty straightforward in the title about the game itself. They're like, how did you, same thing with Karak, like his videos are titled literally like name game of here,
dude,
review.
He has like the most calm reviews I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's like, how, and so that's why I'm really curious to see if Lone gets hit, what they're going to actually try to tell him. Advertisers wouldn't care. And the other thing is that these game companies are probably sitting there saying like, dude, we want advertisers on this stuff because they need the promotion from these YouTubers. They need them to stay in the ecosystem. Yeah. Because it's a cheap alternative for them and it also works really well. So
you know what they should do? This is my honest opinion. Categorize us as gaming channels. And if advertisers are happy to be shown on gaming channels, regardless of whether they have violence in them or not, allow all advertisers just automatically to be shown on those videos. They
used to have that. Remember, I mean, I don't know if you were uploading back then, but there used to be a category you'd select, and there was like entertainment, vlogs.
They still have that, don't they?
Videos.
They do, but it's not really the same.
Yeah, and then there was always a gaming
section. Is
that
being used though? Like, certain channels, when you upload a video that's described as gaming or something else, are those videos, treated with more scrutiny than another category? I reckon we should test that. I reckon Karak should upload 2 of the exact same video, one designated as gaming, one designated as vlog, or whatever the category is, other category, and see whether it affects it. Because I think that's a genuine worrying concern.
Though, getting flagged in general is rare enough that I don't know if that would work. You would have to do that for more than just 2 videos. You would have to upload like 30 videos to even. Well, I mean, to get a good sample, you need a lot of videos for that. But that would be interesting. You could instead, what you could do is you could look at different channels, like a blog channel and a video game channel, and see how their flagged content compares.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting.
Well, time shall tell. We'll wait and see. But that is the state of YouTube at this very moment.
This is the life we chose.
Yeah, this is the life we chose. So yeah, like I always say at the beginning of every podcast, at the end of every video, if you ever want to contribute to myself or Karak, any of the YouTubers you passionately watch, you probably should, because it makes a difference and keeps them on the site. And who knows what you'd do without me. Anyway. Brennan, thank you for your patience as we lost an episode and then recovered, and here we are at the end of the actual episode that is fully recorded. I swear it is. We're good.
Promise? You promise?
Yeah, dude, because what happened, ladies and gentlemen, to quickly wrap this up, is that we were recording and it was about an hour and a half in, and I literally glanced down and see that the microphone section for OBS is just grayed out, and usually that's where I'm talking into. And I was like, oh, fuck, you got to be kidding me. I thought it just turned off at that point. So I said, guys, let's just quickly stop this. So I replay it. And as I'm doing my intro, you just see my mouth moving. And everyone's just sitting there just looking around all happy. But nothing's...
Dude, it's like a horror movie where something slowly goes wrong. I mean, I was mentioning this before. My interview with Chris Avalone first started up and we were recording for 30 minutes. And the way it was happening, I was using OBS. And then suddenly, like 20 minutes in, it's like encoding overload. I'm like, oh no, what the fuck does that mean? So we kept talking for 5 minutes, and I was like, Chris, can we stop? I have a worry that this is stuffed up. And sure enough, when you listen to that recording, the voices were just choppy. Yeah. It was just like encoding overload, and I have no idea why. So yeah,
I can't stand OBS because that happened a couple episodes ago
so
where I
finicky.
literally just sounded like I was a robot, and I just thought to myself, why? You know, when I went to go fix the problem with OBS, just my microphone was disabled because I haven't even touched that option in months and months, but why the hell not, right? And it's like, no one thinks to check it, but whatever. We fixed it. Yeah. Here we are, episode 121. Brendan, thank you again for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for me as well. And I would say to the listeners, this one, the one you're hearing is just as good as the one that was there before. So don't worry.
True.
It was even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We lost Karak in this episode, so it instantly got better.
that's.
Anyway, Lone, any closing words, thoughts, opinions?
No. Thank you for joining. Oh, the hashtag is.
The lost cast.
Lost recording. Lost recording.
Lost recording?
Yeah.
All right, that's what it's going to be. If you've gotten to this point, send a hashtag to any of the handles you see on screen. Lost recording. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us this episode, and we will catch you next week.
Peace.